everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. And we are going to be covering television tonight. We've had a lot of comic book related TV so far in 2021. We're going to try to give everything lip service. There's certain shows that we have talked about on the show in the past that we'll at least give a cursory mention to, but at least in terms of everything that's 2021 that has happened and that we either believe or sure will happen, we'll give some lip service to it. So this is your 2021 Comic Book Bears television program.
It's a television program.
Far from an extravaganza, far from a special, but
it's just a vaganza.
It's a Ganza. Let's put it that way.
It's just a
Ganza. We'll just cut it.
Just a Ganza.
It's a Ganza.
Yeah.
God, my jersey will come out if I say that regularly. It's a Ganza. I used to work with this woman, and okay, see if you can decipher what I'm saying. Such a busy man with your tie flying in the air.
Something about your tie, something flying in the air? Tie flying in the air? Such a busy man?
Busy man with your tie flying in the air.
Sure.
If you ever think I have a heavy Jersey accent, oh baby. I know people got nothing on me. So.
Well, you're the one who sent me the that really great clip of Michelle Visage interviewing Leia Remini, and so you had Jersey and Brooklyn, I guess, or Long Island, really, just going back and forth, and it was, well, for one, I love both of those women, but it was fun to watch and listen to.
And weren't you happy to hear that they're really good friends?
Yes, it made me happy. And I like how they told the story where it's like, we're so alike. We thought we would hate each other.
Because I don't like me. I don't like anyone like me.
I don't like anyone like me. They both said that, and they were like, "Yeah, but you're all right."
The person who introduced them to each other was Sinbad, which for me, there's just like something very funny about that. So
it's fun. But hey, okay, so we I guess we've got some shows to talk about.
Sure. And before we do, though, let's do the fashion edge of it. So for myself, I decided to honor the TV theme, and I have an Arrow shirt. Sorry for the lighting, folks. There's weird things going on here tonight.
And I have the green that kind of goes with the Arrow, but this one is in reference to another show that we all love, but is not comic book related, and that is The Mandalorian. And here's Grogu eating his favorite snack, who happens to be Kermit the Frog.
I have to say, there is an app out there called, what is it called? I've been on it all week, and I can't even remember what the hell it's called right now. But there is an app that is basically geared for comic book speculators. It's called Key Collector, and it is addictive. And so when you started talking about, Grogu and the Mandalorian and comic books, these are characters that have not made a comic book appearance yet. When they do, buy them. I don't care if you read them, put them in plastic, worry about it later. Because Star Wars across the board is exploding. Even like a character like Bosk, the bounty hunter that's like a reptile. You would not believe the prices on the earliest Bosk appearances simply because it's Bosk in there.
And that could be
nuts stuff going on with Star Wars prices.
Now, part of that with Bosk might be coming up because of the current War of the Bounty Hunters that's getting really big. So all those bounty hunter books are going to pop a bounty hunter. Now I sound like I'm from
and also there's also speculation that he will appear in the Book of Fett as well.
True. So we have a couple people joining us today. We've got David Toby.
Hello,
David.
Nottingham fame.
Hey, boys, he says. And then we've also got John Westoff here. Bosk sells records. Sure.
Bosk. Who's the Bosk? That was my favorite.
Who's the Bosk?
Yeah, okay.
Tony. Yes.
That's
with Tiny
joke.
Dancer.
That is a dad
My
joke
favorite star, Tiny Dancer.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Anyway,
So where do you
cool.
want to start? The Arrowverse, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, James Figueredo is joining us.
Hey,
Hello.
James.
Hello. Good evening, handsome nerds, he says.
Hello, James. Hello, handsome James. Happy that you're joining us
Yay.
tonight.
Yay.
And also, with anybody who's joining us, if you want to just, chime in about shows that you're liking, or if you disagree with the things we're saying, because not every one of these is a gem.
No.
Please do. Please do. Okay, so probably the show we probably should get into first was the first one to premiere, and that's Batwoman on the CW. So
That's
I
right.
know that this is one of these shows that the two of us have actually are both completely caught up on. So you were waxing pretty well about the changes with this season of Batwoman. So why don't you start there?
I was. So, they had set up so much stuff. They had been working all last season to set up this whole sort of thing that was going to happen between Alice and Kate Kane, Batwoman, and then Ruby Rose had to go and basically quit. And so you could tell at the very beginning of this, in the first couple episodes, they had to tie that up because Kate Kane as a character is such an important part of the show, and everything that was happening was because of Kate Kane, that when they went and wrote her off the show because Ruby Rose is gone, they were kind of at a loss of what to do with some of those loose ends and some of those story plot lines that they were going to be really focusing on. You could tell very good in that first episode what they were going to be focusing on this season with, the fake Bruce Wayne and, everything that was going to be going on with Alice and the kryptonite bullet and, possibly a Supergirl crossover and all this stuff. Well,
actually, the crossover was supposed to be Superman and Lois, not Supergirl.
Oh, Superman and Lois.
It was intended for that.
But yeah, I mean, they had to scrap a lot of that stuff, but they had to kind of figure out what to do with what they had while they were scrapping it. And I think they floundered a little bit, but Javicia Leslie as Ryan, the new Batwoman, I think is great because she came in absolutely new. She's a completely original character that was written into the show. And is kind of like, somebody coming into an established team, just trying to make it work. And I really appreciate that because it changed the feel of the show a little bit from, Kate Kane and all of her exes basically all showing up, and all the drama with her and Alice, and really kind of, I don't want to say it didn't take it all away because there's still a lot of Alice drama. In fact, most of that Alice drama is just Alice. And it's basically 50% Alice and 50% Ryan. But I think it's pretty interesting. They've got Sidonis this time. Black Mask is the big bad for the first half of the season. And they had, what was her name as well? That kind of played into the first several episodes.
God!
For the Alice
on the island, she was so annoying.
Sophia.
I was so
glad on the island. Which when we got rid of that, and again, that was a lot of that
carryover from the first season. I thought that
exactly
it could have carryover. A lot.
It was the Alice show. That was all the Alice show. Everybody else was just sort of like, I guess maybe we need to kind of piggyback along to that. But in the meantime, we got a lot more Ryan, a lot more of that development, and her friendship with Mary, who's still one of my favorite characters. I love Mary, the sister.
She's had a lot more to do this season.
Yeah. So, but also the whole speculation about what was going to happen with Kate Kane. Well, guess what? They are bringing back Kate Kane. They're doing it by having her face replaced by Black Mask. Basically pretends that she's his daughter, or at least hypnotizes her, has her hypnotized to think that she's his daughter. And it's Wallace. Don't
worry about it.
Day. Wallace Day from Krypton, who is now taking that role of Kate Kane, or will be Kate Kane, with the new face. So it's good. I think it's got some direction going to it. I don't know if a lot of people watching it are really jiving on it because it has been kind of going down the tubes in ratings. But it has been renewed.
From what I understand, the streaming numbers are okay. Not compared to Superman and Lois, which apparently has like fantastic streaming numbers. And those are the only two CW shows because of the existing contract on with Netflix that currently are on HBO Max. I have to say, in Javicia Leslie's defense, maybe not defense is the word, but in praise of her, I had no idea how wooden Ruby Rose was until we had her in this spot. She was a spark that the show, I thought, really needed. There's still problems. There's again, Doug Ray Scott and the girl plays Sophie. I don't rank them very highly. Both of them have like a little more interesting things happening. I thought the snake bite craze, I think, it could go to interesting places. So far, it really hasn't, but it could.
Yeah.
And again, snake bite is like a venom type of drug that's hit Gotham. I do like that they have the ability to hit social issues in a way that they couldn't previously. I believe. I thought they've been handled fairly well, but I do think there is some degree of social justice issue of the week, and it doesn't really scream that, but if you do step back, there is some element of that. And we did end on a very interesting cliffhanger for the show that is taking a few weeks break. And I'm also confused about how long these seasons are, because again, you're used to 13 or 22, and with COVID and some other circumstances, it seems these shows are just trying to get in as many episodes as they can.
I mean, it could be 16, it could be 19. I mean, it's all kind of like,
it's at least 15 that we have confirmed for Batwoman.
And they might throw it on, who knows?
Yeah, so again, the Sophia stuff, I just thought that went on way too long. And again, like, for me, the most interesting moments with Alice were not on the island. The stuff that was going on with her in Gotham, I thought was very interesting. And now she doesn't have her motivation anymore. So something's been replaced, and that's been an interesting character arc for her.
I mean, I do like Alice. I do.
Yeah. It's a character that will never have redemption, and shouldn't, for the actions that she took. But with whatever character arc this particular person is experiencing, I never thought I'd get that word wrong. Experiencing, it's interesting to watch. I think they've done a good job with her second season, especially since they had to scramble and recalibrate so many things that they had planned.
David actually has a couple of things to say about this. In my opinion, they missed the mark with the ambience of the book, which mostly deals with the gothic horror side of Gotham, which, the original Batwoman book and action comics, not action, detective. The point to me was that she wasn't Batman, but they tried to CW eyes and replace Arrow with another gritty realism show. And then it got super soapy. And
it's been soapy from day one. I don't agree with that.
CW.
There's been a soap opera element to it. It doesn't have the CW tropes in the grand degrees that the Flash does, and we've talked about this before, that like every third episode someone has to say, I thought you were my friend, and you have 22-year-olds who are the CFOs of multinational corporations. You don't have that so much that you see in abundance in particularly the Flash and Riverdale. But I can understand where he's coming from. I don't think Arrow is the most appropriate comparison, because Arrow was a bit schizophrenic through its 8-season run. You did have some moments where the show was, effectively an urban crime drama, and then some moments where it just veered so far away from that. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best comparison.
I don't know. I think I understand really the reasoning for it was that they knew Arrow was going to be leaving. They needed a street level hero, which Batman fulfills, but unfortunately Batman was off the table
Yeah.
because whatever reason from WB, none of the big names apparently, none of the Trinity. You could always have like their side characters.
And the other show that was already in place that you could arguably say was street level, but since it's so weird in some other aspects, not, Black Lightning, just works on such a different vibe. So
very, very different, very different vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. But actually, if you wanted to talk about Black Lightning, that's a perfect segue because I unfortunately have not been really watching it this season at all. And I did watch some of last season, leading up to Crisis, but yeah, it's gotten weird.
Well,
it's different.
I don't know how to put this. Okay. This season was so bleak, and it got to a point where it was unnecessarily bleak. They also had some unexpected problems. One particular cast member left unexpectedly. How they worked around that was novel, and there's actually a big surprise in the last episode. They were setting up a pilot for Painkiller as a spin-off series, which could have followed some of these characters at least on an ongoing basis. That pilot was not picked up. The backdoor pilot episode that aired was not particularly impressive. A little scary when there's one actor in the supporting cast who has boatloads of charisma, and the other two, the primary support and the lead just weren't there. But the actor who played Painkiller in the last few episodes of Black Lightning does some really impressive work. The last 3 episodes of Black Lightning, and some of this is because they knew they had to wrap things up on a somewhat accelerated schedule because they didn't have an order past the 13. That the end was satisfying. And just to give a very basic framework of what goes down in a fairly big sense, how am I blanking on the name of the city?
Freeland,
Jesus, Alzheimer's here, folks. I'm getting old here. Freeland is in a atmosphere right now where they're kind of had it with the masks. That there's both on the good and bad end, and a lot of this echoes in what's going on in the Batman comics right now, that there is an interest to kind of put that behind them, especially after the war with the Markovians. So through a number of situations, Tobias Whale, and this isn't a big spoiler, it's all over, Tobias Whale becomes mayor. And that doesn't bode well for the Pierce family, as you can probably imagine. There also is an extended arc where Black Lightning and his family lose their powers. One of the members takes extreme measures to get them back. Lynn and Jefferson have, a number of issues throughout the season, and some of them are, I thought played out really well and really realistic with a couple that's together who are actually divorced. I think people forget that, what their actual marital status is. And Cress Williams can't act as a drunk for shit. I thought that was,
you have said that before. I will agree.
Really enjoy him. I especially love you have a show where the character is middle-aged as a lead in a superhero show. We have that somewhat with Superman and Lois, a little bit younger, but just teenage kids, at this point. I thought it could have gone out on a higher note. They did do good service in saluting everything that had gone on in the past. There are a number of characters that make a reappearance, even if it's fleeting or, in a cameo or reference situation. Gambi actually has a female love interest this season. And that's been interesting because I always liked James Remar as an actor. And I thought, for me, he's the anchor of the show. He's the anchor of the family. That family would fall apart without him because, they're all, they all have their own agendas and they don't always mix, the Pierce family. Again, with with Innocent Grace, you have LGBT representation on the show, and their arc as a couple has had some interesting moments. I think it's definitely worth watching. I would never tell you not to watch it, but just do be prepared for, and actually, this might be better for you if you do binge it, and you're getting episode after episode after episode, where the bleakness may not feel as momentous as it did for me. The way that I consume my superhero TV week after week, generally. So I'll be interested to hear what you see and say. I did think they wrapped up things fairly well. You are going to wonder, like, someone going to jail, but at the end, you'll see what I mean. But you do have a coda with this. I have heard a rumor that the CW has made offers to Melissa Benoist and Cress Williams to do the crossover next year. That there are some shows that are actually starting with a crossover, but there's supposed to be like a top secret crossover, which, I would like to see the Super Friends, have some action together, as was set up at the end of the last crossover of Crisis. And these are these characters, again, apart from Stargirl, are operating on the same Earth. We can see some of these. Gambi, I think, would be ideal on some other shows. Assisting with tech or advising. I think that's one character that could work on any of the shows that are in existence right now. So farewell, Black Lightning. Maybe. It's been an interesting 4 years. Not the strongest, hat tip and encore that they could have had, but they did wrap up things in the last few episodes fairly well. But just when you do watch the season, be prepared for just angst and bleakness and for a time. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like I say that the bulk of maybe the previous seasons have been relatively bleak and down, and the whole Green, the kids who had been experimented on in the whole first season, that was just awful, and like, they're dying one by one in their cryopods, and then of course they're being exploited afterwards, and then the whole war thing, so there's a lot of stuff. But that's not the only one that's ending the season. I think Supergirl's also ending too after 6 years and two different networks. Two different networks.
And that's another show that you're not caught up on.
That I'm not caught up on. And I know that this season is very crazy, or not crazy, but very different.
It's very different. And again, some of that is based around Melissa Benoist's pregnancy. That's one of the reasons the show is coming to an end. There are full episodes without major characters. There's one sequence where some of the characters go back to what is the early 2000s, and they're talking about, like, I would talk about the 70s, which is kind of
past.
Weird. And again, that's another
high
show.
School when you had flip phones.
Yeah, and that's another case of a show that had to do a major recalibration because of the CW shows. That was the show that had far less in the can at the end of the last season when they stopped with COVID. So the first 2 or 3 episodes basically are the end of the last season. And you can also tell, like, some people look a little older now, just a little bit, when you do watch it. And, both Kyler Lee and, Luthor, what's his name? John, the guy who plays Lex Luthor, who was on, John,
I know you're talking about.
Oh, Cryer.
Ducky.
Yeah, they both have confirmed that there were parts of those first 3 episodes that were filmed in early 2020, and then some that were filmed in December and January of this year. So it's another show where
it wasn't as bad as, like, say, Kate Mara in Fantastic Four or Fortastic where like her wig changes when you
Yeah.
can tell when they did a reshoot versus
Yeah.
the original, because it's like, oh,
The movie you really can tell that with, if you ever watch Halloween 2, they had an 8-month break in filming between, and you can tell like they're just Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. You can just tell they're like, they're just from different time periods. You can tell
yeah.
if you're looking out for it. So Supergirl spent a substantial amount of time in the first half of the season in the Phantom Zone. The Phantom Zone, as we know it, is not how it operates in Supergirl's universe. There also are some interesting characters that make appearances that were previously deceased. And post-crisis, now their storylines are different. Kyler Lee kind of has a superhero identity now, which again, if I ran that show, the last few minutes of Supergirl of the season finale, you would hear the words, that a ring would come to her and say, she's a Lantern Corps member. That would be mine.
Maybe.
I mean, my point.
Maybe. I mean, the finale isn't until later this year.
Yeah, they're
right?
taking the break that they have. They finished episodes airing 2 weeks ago, and it doesn't resume until August. And that's another thing. It's like everything's off the table now with how seasons are structured.
Spring, fall means nothing.
So
Winter
with
means
Supergirl
nothing.
probably
Mid-season, who
won't
knows?
finish its run until October with that schedule.
Yeah.
So
which will lead pretty well into the next season of shows. I mean, basically the way that CW is structuring things, a lot of the shows now aren't going to be back until mid-season, but mid-season could be January, February, December. Like it could be any time that their other show runs are done. So,
and they did introduce some new characters that are interesting. Mixie is fairly interesting. And her story isn't over yet. We do leave with Supergirl back on Earth at the end of the mid-season break. So whatever happens in the second half is going to be very different from the first. So,
well, and one of the interesting things, the way that they broke this up this year with Supergirl having this period now and then going on break, coming back, was because they introduced a brand new show, also a super show, Superman and Lois, which started off first, then went on break, and Supergirl took over that time slot, and then now Supergirl's back on break. Superman and Lois is going to finish out its run for its first season.
So you have continued super.
Yeah, super all year long, which is great. And I do have to say, and I think, Bill, you feel the exact same way about this. This show is amazing.
Oh, God.
Love it.
It pulls at the heartstrings when they do have action sequences. They are unreal. That fight in that hotel. I mean, the only thing I think that comes close to Daredevil's fight, walking down the corridor, is what we had in that hotel room. That was some of the best fight choreography I have ever seen. And the show, it hits so many buttons. It's about small town America. It's about deception. It's about teenagers and how unsure teenagers are growing up. It's so much in there that it's to the point where it's hard to say. If you have to say what the show's about, it's almost like what is the show not about?
Well, and I think
I'm adoring it. I am adoring it. I am not, and if there's things about the show like, Tulloch, I'll never pronounce her first name right. I don't think she's.
It's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Oh, it's but then she goes like Bitsy or something.
She goes by Bitsy, but it's Elizabeth Tulloch. Yeah.
Okay. Bitsy. Where are you summering, Bitsy? Okay, so tangents, folks. You're gonna get them. I don't think she's a powerhouse actress, but my God, the chemistry she has with
Oh, yeah.
Tyler. My God, I mean, they honestly feel like a married couple to me. They honestly do.
And when they first had her,
And I
because they first
totally
brought her on.
understand the casting from that perspective.
Oh
She is
yeah.
not the Lois Lane in my head, but she has
Mm-hmm.
very Lois actions and very
Yes.
Lois momentum in her scenes, and I do think they made the right casting choice in the end.
They did, and I totally agree with that. She's not the Lois in my head, but at the same time, the way that she interacts, that she and Tyler Hoechlin, who is my Superman, who's not Henry Cavill, it just, I think they work so well together. He works great in costume and out of costume. In fact, this past episode, he spent just as much time out of costume than anything else. But I think they do a great job together. When she's the focus of the story, I don't feel like I'm missing like anything else. I don't think I'm missing out on some Superman action or with the twins or whatever. And I think the supporting cast is great. I love Lois's boss because she's goofy and fun and silly, and I'm like, you know what, I like her outside. She's she's great. But
even a character that out of the gate seemed like Boo Hiss in Lana's husband. He has a lot of layers. And
he's got depth to it.
Yeah, there's
even though
a lot
he's
of
kind of
stuff
like the asshole
going on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
The one character who I think is the weakest, and that's mostly because the screen time has been next to nothing for the past 7 episodes, has been the season's main villain, who is I can't remember his name. He's the head of the corporation.
He was initially the Stranger, and then Captain Luthor, and then this week
not him.
Morgan Edge.
Not him. Morgan Edge.
Yeah.
Morgan Edge is supposed to be, he was the villain from day one. Yes, of course, there was the Captain Luthor character and this mysterious stranger from another Earth with a.
We're not telling you who he is, but this week was cool.
This week,
really
yeah,
cool.
And
really cool.
We're not the only ones to have seen it. I think everybody kind of fell off their couches with that reveal. Yeah. But the main baddie here really hasn't had a lot of time to shine. Now, obviously, the characters, the super powered henchmen that he's created, are showing up every episode. But now that he's in the show, I think he had the most screen time in this latest episode, and it's mostly just him in an office for a couple minutes here, a couple lines dialogue there, and a couple like sinister, that's it. He's kind of a weak villain at this point. Hopefully they give him a little bit more screen time. But who we thought was the other villain, well, that was absolutely unforeseen, a complete shock. I had no idea. I woke my husband up. He was sleeping very comfortably in the comfy chair, like snoozing during evening TV hours like he tends to do, and he was like, what the? when I literally just like jumped up and went, what? It was fantastic. That was a fantastic reveal, and that's what I think makes really good CW TV, is when you have those moments in Arrowverse shows, and they happen every so often in the other Arrowverse shows, but this series has been consistently just good. And then when you have like that moment where it just sort of just blows up, I think that it just continues the momentum of how wonderful.
And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 2 or 3 more moments like that.
Oh yeah,
through
they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah.
So
a very different CW show that I know we're both caught up on is DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Every frame is fun. Every frame is fun. The show
makes
found its voice, and it doesn't try to be anything that it isn't. This cast works so well together. Yeah. I mean, Jesus, it's so much fun.
Every episode is basically just fan service. It's taking these characters who.
Well, I don't know if you can say that, because of all the shows, there's more original content in this show than the others. The characters have deviated from their sources so far.
That's the point. It's fan service, but fans for the show, not necessarily fans of like DC.
Thank you for making that distinction. That was exactly what I was about to say.
But basically, like the first episode or the first season, more or less kind of played it straight. Yes, they were a group of misfits, and yes, there were some like funny dynamics going on there with like, oh, here's some villains, and here's some like, 5,000-year-old reincarnated people. But I think like after season 2, it really found its voice, and also found out that voice was batshit insane, and it ran with it. And I think from season 3 on, it's just gotten funnier, and the characters have just really gelled so well together. The actors have really gelled really well together. It looks like the kind of show that's a blast to work on. That like everybody there just like loves going into, whether that's the case or not. Maybe they all hate each other, and then we're just kind of wishful thinking here, but it looks like it's a blast, and the ridiculousness. We're getting a Bebo Christmas, a special Bebo. Yeah. That's not an episode of the series. It is a hour-long animated special with Yvette Nicole Brown in it. Like that's just it's Bebo Saves Christmas, and I'm like, nobody would have expected something like that to come from this show.
I also love, if you ever notice the end of the episodes on the DC, you see Bebo waving and sitting on top of the DC symbol. I absolutely love that. Not everybody's caught that. I also like how the show is operating on 2 different tracks, where you do have Sarah kidnapped, and another character from before isn't who we thought he was, and they're off on one tangent, and the rest of the team in search of her are on another. This show's gold. I just absolutely. And this last week with the Cuban Missile Crisis and things that you never would associate with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh, it was just gold. It really was.
It was ridiculous, and I think just the no, I'm not Shay, I'm Jay. Like I mean, just the weirdness of, and the things that they get away with in these episodes is just
the weirdness of Barat playing a Cat Stevens song to Fidel Castro.
Oh my God. Why not?
And
why not? And then
and just gut wrenching laughter how they resolved the missile and what happened on the lawn there. I mean, I was really glad I wasn't drinking, because there would have been a big spit take at that.
So I mean, good. I just so and I love how they do constant callbacks, and there's like lots of it's continued fan service. It's like, hey, that really went over really well like 2 seasons ago. Let's just like bring that thing back, or let's talk about it, or make a joke, or and it's fun. It is kind of sad some of the cast is leaving after this year. But you know what? This has always been a revolving door kind of show.
Yeah. And I will say, the end of this last episode, the look on Mick Rory's face at the end of the episode may be the best moment so far in the entire series. It may be the best moment so far in the entire series.
Oh, he's
yeah. And I understand there are people that don't enjoy the show because of how silly it is, and because of where it's gone. And I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for them. I really do, because let the laughter in sometimes. So with Arrowverse, we've covered Batwoman, we've covered Supergirl, we've covered. I am really saying covered. Legends of Tomorrow and Superman and Lois and Black Lightning. We haven't covered The Flash, which is the second oldest show in the Arrowverse, considering Arrowverse.
It's basically it's the current grandfather.
It's the current grandfather. And what we have this season is Barry and Iris basically gave birth to different forces beyond the Speed Force.
Yeah,
in a science that puzzled me, and they've had human inhibited certain humans, and it's a bit confusing, and I don't know, the season's not working for me so far.
It is kind of frustrating. I mean, obviously we dealt with the mirror the Mirrorverse thing,
which went on way too long. That was
because it started in the last season and then
we didn't get to the end of that. Yeah
And just kind of was like, okay, this is we're kind of done with this. And then of course we have what essentially is a setup for the Flash War, from the comics, kind of with introducing the different forces.
Yeah.
So you have the Still Force, the
Sage Force,
Sage Force, Strength Force, and what was that last one?
Speed.
Well, Speed, but there was another one. Wasn't there?
I don't think we've seen that one yet.
Was it before Opposing Forces? Well, I mean, we've definitely seen 3. It is what it is. There was also this other side thing about Caitlin Snow getting split into both Frost and Caitlin. So like you had the two like distinct people existing not in the same body. And then of course they had to like, well, I guess we can't spend all the time doing this, this on-screen trickery. So let's put Frost in prison for life. Like, I don't understand all that. And I was just kind of meh.
She's ideal for the Suicide Squad though.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And I think that's probably why it kind of went to this. So they can bring her back, obviously. And the actress is still on screen, and she's also behind the camera directing several of these episodes as well. So, I mean, obviously they can bring her back whenever. But I haven't really been meshing so much with this season. And
yeah, I mean, it said perfectly when we were discussing before. It was perfect what we were discussing. We both missed this week's episode and are no rush to.
No. Eventually I'll watch it because I do.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it before the next episode airs, but I'm not in that same Superman and Lois bucket where I have to see it as soon as I can.
I have to see it. Yeah, exactly. It looks like we've got a couple other comments here. John Runyon has joined. Comic Book Bears
Hey,
Assemble.
John Runyon. Glad he's back from the Hellfire Ball.
The Bat Force, because there has to be a Bat one. And then also David had made a couple mentions here. Superman and Lois is absolutely fantastic. Latest episode actually surprised me, which I surprised everybody, I think.
Us too. Yeah.
I like it, but it also is feared so far from the DC universe, and that annoys me. And but that's the nature of the CW Arrowverse, is that you're going to get characters showing up in circumstances or getting powers in circumstances that were absolutely not how that happened in the comics, or interacting in ways that are not canon, so to speak. But it's its own thing. So I always squee when they bring in somebody that I recognize, or some character, some villain or other meta that I recognize. But,
probably my favorite moment along those lines was in the first season of The Flash, when Kavanaugh was reeling off the names of the other people that were affected by the collider collapsing, and they were all familiar DC Comics names. That was my favorite moment along those. And we've seen some of those people. We haven't seen some others so far. So those are the moments I love. And, I understand where, because I don't think any of these shows have been, faithful. But thank God they haven't, because we got out of that Felicity Smoke. We got White Canary. We got so many elements that we never would have had if they had stuck to, the Bible. So I can understand, because you do want to see what you enjoy represented in some form that is familiar to yourself. But I think, consistently with these shows that we have had interesting deviations. And for the most part, they've been quality.
And to specify what David, his comment about veering so far from DC Universe, he was talking about Legends in that case. And yes, that's true. I mean, again, Legends, so off book, so off DC Comics history. It's fun and wacky. John also wanted to make mention here that the Hellfire Gala was cool, referencing X-Men and of course last night's show. But Comic Book Bears is a much more epic party. Oh, sure, yeah,
sure.
So always a rave here.
Steve, what a party! Jesus.
Well, hey, but that's
Alston
all. That
would be
shows.
Jealous.
Oh
Yeah.
But that's another show on Netflix, and it's not based on a comic. So we're not
okay. So since we've had mostly DC, I just want to bring up some other
Yeah.
DC shows, and we're just going to do these rapid fire. Some of them were on the precipice of actually enjoying them. Lucifer will have its last 4 episodes of season 5 start airing tomorrow, May 28th.
Mm-hmm.
We're recording this on the 27th. On June
Yep.
4th, we have Sweet Tooth making its premiere on Netflix. We also
My body's
have
ready.
on
It's not ready.
Saturday. Now, this is a show I watch, which I know you don't or don't consistently. Teen Titans Go. Legends may be batshit crazy. Teen Titans Go is batshit crazy to an insane degree.
Well,
This episode on Saturday is titled Marv Wolfman and George Perez. So if that's not a must-see for a comic book fan, I don't know what is. The show is nuts. It really feels like the kids are in charge and the adults aren't watching. When you have, I mean, just so many nutty things like, Starfire
Meatball
decides that her
Party.
best friend is an ice cream scoop. I mean, there's just so much stuff, particularly from season 3 on. And also the fan service to other stuff in the DC universe is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So that's happening. We also have a crossover that's happening on May 31st on Monday, which is called Space House, which is a crossover between Teen Titans Go and DC Superhero Girls. DC Superhero Girls starts its 2nd season on June 6th. Later on in this year, we will likely enjoy the 3rd season of Harley Quinn. That's estimated for late 2021. They did begin recording the audio in February. Teen Titans is filming through next week with the first Titans is filming through next week with August 2021 being aimed for the start. We have Stargirl's 2nd season coming up on the CW, which will also align with HBO Max. And Doom Patrol began filming its 3rd season on January 4th. Will likely appear in 2021. Also, Young Justice Phantom's kind of up in the air. We haven't had much news about that. It's really nice to see that DC Universe had so many shows survive. Out of the shows that we're listing here, only Swamp Thing was a casualty, and some of the issues regarding that show were sort of outside of any kind of reception. Swamp Thing's ratings on the CW are better than
great.
Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and Black Lightning.
So for those of you who don't know so much about Swamp Thing got the 1 season. I blame my state. It is filmed or was filmed here in North Carolina. And unfortunately, due to some issues that our lovely Republican-controlled state legislature had put in place a couple of years prior to that, absolutely gutting the state film credit and actually literally destroyed our film industry, which was one of the biggest and fastest growing in the country. Gave it all to Georgia, so now Georgia has everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you couldn't get Georgia or you couldn't get Vancouver in your budget, you could get North Carolina.
You could always get Wilmington, North Carolina. Yeah. Wilmington and Concord and Charlotte area. So many movies have been filmed here, TV shows over the past 20 years. The problem is about 6-7 years ago, we had a fully Republican-controlled legislature and governorship that completely destroyed the film and TV industry in the state. And unfortunately, getting back up to the point, because we still have a Republican-controlled legislature, where we can really bring back that industry, it's not there yet, and Swamp Thing, unfortunately, was a bit of a casualty to that, the limitations. So I blame my state.
Okay, and in regards to some of the Vertigo titles, Why the Last Man is supposed to finish filming on July 5th of this year, and they are targeting 2021 for a debut on Hulu. And also DMZ is scheduled for HBO Max with the first episode directed by Ava
DuVernay.
Ava DuVernay. Jesus, thank you. I was so far off. And that is aiming for 2021. That is currently in production. So there you go with DC stuff on TV. So we got
Yep.
Marvel, and Marvel we've talked about far more on this show. We have gone into in depth WandaVision and also the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as I called it before we started, the Falcon and the Snowman. Sorry,
Falcon and Snowman.
I am a product of the 80s. But we do have an active animated show happening right now, which is M.O.D.O.K. Now, I've only seen the
Yes.
first episode, but you've, I believe, seen all 10?
I have.
Okay, so why don't you tell us about M.O.D.O.K?
So M.O.D.O.K is, and if you watched the first episode, it is abundantly clear that it is brought to you by the wonderful minds and production studios over at Robot Chicken. So the animation, it's a stop motion animation style, with some CGI and other stuff thrown in. And the action is funny. The dialogue is mostly snappy, somewhat absurd. It takes the whole premise of M.O.D.O.K. almost in a cinema verite style presentation of M.O.D.O.K. as head of AIM, really showing that he's been driving the company or the organization into the ground with his elaborate schemes, super expensive, plans that always end up failing horribly, just like in the comics. And unfortunately, they get taken over by a Google-like multi-conglomerate media company. And M.O.D.O.K. is pretty much demoted down to, he keeps getting further demoted, ends up in the mailroom eventually. But it also features M.O.D.O.K.'s home life. He has a family, a wife, and 2 children. One, Melissa, who's just like a mini M.O.D.O.K., but a teenage girl. And then Lou, who is, for lack of a better term, insane. As a 13-year-old boy who's just getting ready for his bar mitzvah, and he really wants to do magic for the bar mitzvah. And that leads to a wonderful episode where they get trapped in Asgard and start a war between the Asgardians and the goblins. So it's bizarre. The premise of the show is just wild, and everything just is a complete mess, episode after episode. Some of them are not so great. Some of them are absolute gold. There's an entire episode where Arcade features very heavily. Good old villain Arcade and his robots. That is surprising and shocking, and of course, something that you would expect by watching this episode. Wonder Man shows up. There's a lot of wackiness and some great episodes, but then also sometimes you kind of want to fast forward and skip. So it's 10 episodes. It's on Hulu.
Yeah, so I've watched the show first episode, and my feeling is it's one of those shows that isn't nearly as clever as it thinks it is, which I think you can say for a lot of Robot Chicken. But Robot Chicken, there's some moments on those shows that are just side-splitting funny and brilliant, but there's also moments that don't work. And I think the problem with M.O.D.O.K., where it is an overarching story, is it's not that easy to discard the elements that don't work as well. Because of the way the show is set up. Patton Oswalt does the voice of M.O.D.O.K., and I believe he's also a showrunner on it too.
I think he's one of the producers.
I know he's in the writer's room. And at least you're getting the right sensibility, even if not everything's working. So I'm definitely going to watch the remainders of the episodes. I love the Super Adaptoid in the first episode. Just how dry and pathetic he was.
What was it that? Oh, the margarita, the blender's not working.
Yeah. Oh, great! I'm a ladder.
I'm a Super Adaptoid. Yeah. I actually, to go back to something you said, I absolutely agree with you. The one great thing about Robot Chicken is that if something isn't working, if the sketch isn't working,
over and
it's
done
over
in
seconds.
Yeah.
In seconds. Here, if something's not working, it keeps going for up to 20, 30 minutes.
Okay, so most of the Marvel stuff that we would be able to talk about hasn't happened yet. So again, we have had WandaVision and the Falcon and the Snowman. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Jesus Christ. You may as well just rename the Winter Soldier the Snowman. We do have Loki, which is premiering this upcoming Wednesday.
Yeah, the 4th.
And that is
no, I think it's Friday.
June 9th.
No, it is. That's right.
A week from Wednesday, June 9th.
Did it move up? Yeah, it moved up a little bit. It was going to be the 11th. Now it's the 9th. Yeah.
9th, yeah.
We do have a quick comment from John Runyon. 100% agreed. I personally didn't like it as much as I thought it would. Talking about M.O.D.O.K. 3 episodes in, poor M.O.D.O.K. getting demoted, though. Yes, it is kind of unfortunate watching him just bounce down the corporate ladder. But yeah, so I mean, Loki's the next big Marvel show coming out in just a week and a half. I'm really excited about it. The trailers have been absolutely great. Do you think that it suffered much just, from the COVID reshuffling of all the movie premieres? Because I think Loki hasn't really changed where it was going to be premiering, whereas it was supposed to come after Black Widow.
Yeah. I don't think it would definitely suffer because it seems the projects that it's going to be tied to, like the upcoming Doctor Strange and to some degree Thor: Love and War, it's still somewhat in the order that they were anticipating. So so I don't think so. And also in 2021 we have Hawkeye coming up. We have Ms. Marvel coming up this is on Disney. Whatchamacallit? Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Ms. Marvel is scheduled to premiere in late 2021, again, like Loki, consisting of 6 episodes. And this will also be a prequel, in a sense, for the upcoming film, The Marvels. And a show that doesn't really get mentioned too often, mainly because it's not bannered as a Marvel show at this point, is Big Hero 6, the series. That recently had its series finale on February 15th. I do have to get caught up with it. They did change the format in the last season where the episodes were basically in a Teen Titans Go type of 15-minute, 11-minute, within 15-minute format. There is going to be a spinoff series called Baymax, which is going to be on Disney Plus in 2022. And from most of the indications, it's more a continuation than a spinoff. It seems that the majority of the voice actors have been engaged again for Baymax. So just for some background, Big Hero 6 began as a Marvel property in the comics, and this is the one thing that Disney kind of just put their claws in, because there's really no Marvel branding on the animated series of the film at all, and yet it did start as Sunfire and the Big Hero 6, and in my head it will always be Marvel based. So
we also have it looks like Disney Plus, other than obviously what we know with the MCU, like the MCU branded shows, for this year. And yes, we did just get some news for next year as well, with Moon Knight definitely confirmed with Isaac.
But that's 2022.
But that's 2022. But this year, it seems like they're really focusing a lot on other Marvel properties to focus, for kids. So a lot of animated series are coming up, including one that's maybe not so much for kids.
Yeah, What If is not for kids, from what I understand.
Yeah, What If is definitely not for kids, but that's premiering soon. But then we've also got like a new Spider-Man cartoon coming out.
Which is also a throwback to the 80s. It's titled Marvel's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Not too much information about it, but it will premiere on Disney Junior in 2021. You mentioned What If. I think we've run the gamut regarding Marvel. The one show we didn't talk about is Stargirl from DC.
Stargirl, again, because we haven't had a second season yet. The season doesn't start until later this year. Naomi is also going to be starting again later this year, but actually it's mid-season. It'll be 2022. Or December 2021. We don't know.
All right, so since we mentioned the CW show, we may as well mention Riverdale. Oh baby, this season. For people who haven't been watching it, there was a 7-year time jump with the characters. The show is preposterous. It's the show's ridiculous. Nobody would act in the way that these people. Oh God, that made me forget about another DC series, which was Pennyworth, which
Oh
completed
yeah,
in
Pennyworth.
2021 on Epix. There is some talk about it having a third season on HBO Max. I thought they did wrap it up fairly well. You know, a term that we use a lot on the show, at least I do, is batshit crazy. Um, Pennyworth is the most batshit crazy show that is out there. Alfie Pennyworth in the show makes enough bad decisions in one episode that more characters make over an entire season. Um, the Where we are in the second season, basically England in a hyper fictionalized version of 1965 is in the process of a civil war, and I mean, there's things I like about it. The guy that plays Thomas Wayne, oof, oof, oh, yeah, but it really is insane, and it's
Mhm.
it's Gotham on acid.
Yeah.
That's the only way to
Yeah.
describe it. You have historical characters like Queen Elizabeth and Aleister Crowley mingling in ways that you just could not conceive of. Um, I don't know if the showrunners are doing very hard drugs or they're totally sober and just insane, but it's one of the wildest shows out there. And you're either
Wow.
into it or you're not. I'm into DC, so I'm into it. And we'll see if we do get a third season. But the second season wrapped up things fairly well. I know you haven't watched it yet, though you have the episodes.
I have them all, yes.
Yep.
I have them all waiting and ready to be watched whenever.
And Riverdale is the same thing.
3 hours.
Riverdale is the same thing. You have the episodes, but haven't watched. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
So, in terms of some other series, we'll do some rapid ones, and then there's a couple that we can get into in some detail at the end. There's a TV show called Just Beyond on the what channel is that on? Looks like Disney Plus.
Maybe.
And that is based on a graphic novel by R.L. Stine that he did for Boom Studios. I know nothing of this, but it is comic book TV, so we mention it. Resident Alien is a show that's on Sci-Fi, which you have watched.
I loved
has
it.
Recently been renewed for a second season. So can you just give us a very basic encapsulation about what Resident Alien is about? Because I haven't watched it yet.
Basically, Alan Tudyk being super weird and very inappropriate for 10 episodes. That is Resident Alien, is Alan Tudyk being inappropriate, which is wonderful, and I love that, and it made me very happy to watch. Basically, he's an alien who's very different from the comic book, and I think I mentioned this when it first premiered. It was one of my wolves. Very different from the comic book originally published by Dark Horse, I believe, where he was just a curious alien that's come to Earth and befriends some local humans to experience what it is like to be, to live as a human. In this one, he is an alien sent to destroy humanity, to kill them all, eliminate them. His ship crashes, and he's forced to assume the persona of a doctor who he murders when he arrives. Hilarity ensues. Everybody thinks he's weird, but for some reason want to be his friend. And all the while, he keeps trying to find the doomsday device so he can completely destroy and wipe out humanity. And yet, in the course of his time there, falls in love with people and how weird people are, and sex and food and all sorts, and drinking and all sorts of craziness that come along with being human. So it's great. It's a lot of fun. Linda Hamilton is in it as an admiral or a general. I mean, it's just, the cast in this is great. Very well done. And they play basically the giant group of straight man around Alan Tudyk's complete and utter, jester, inappropriate jester. So very cool. Ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So I'm really excited for the second season when it comes.
Okay.
Probably next year.
Okay, on Netflix we have Warrior Nun, which is based on Warrior Nun Aurelia,
Mm-hmm.
a comic book that I have a few tie-in issues but have never read.
Yep.
And it was renewed for a second season in August of last year, and those might hit in 2021. Did you watch this at all?
I did. I watched the first season. It's fun. It's a cool
Mhm.
concept. I hear that it deviates very much
Mhm.
from the
Oh
comic
yeah,
book source material.
from what I'm seeing here, yeah.
All the basic premises there, and the basic characteristics of that world still exist. It's just the characters have been more or less um, rearranged or done away with altogether. So,
Mhm.
very, very interesting plot and very international cast. I
Okay.
believe it's filmed in Spain or Portugal, and a lot of the cast is from all over Europe
Mhm.
and South America. So it's a pretty interesting group
Okay.
and an interesting show.
Okay, so that may hit the second season this year. Van
Mhm.
Helsing had its final season this year. This is a series that is based on the Zenescope Entertainment graphic novel series Helsing. I have never watched it. It's on Sci-Fi. I understand you watched the first few seasons.
Yeah, it is very interesting, sort of post-apocalyptic vampire nation kind of thing. So, if anybody remembers the
What?
very short-lived V
Wait,
Wars
hang on.
fifth season,
The series was created by Neil LaBute.
yeah.
What?
So it's in its fifth season now. So it's had 5 years worth of shows. So it's gone on pretty well. Leave it to sci-fi to let these things
Yeah,
kind of go
no.
on. I
I
lost
mean,
interest,
you
but
know, I just know him from his theater work and in the Company of
mhm.
Men and stuff like that. So I might
um,
check that out just out of curiosity. There is a show on Netflix called Raising Dion, which is based on a
yeah, that's from
2015
last year.
comic book and short with film. It was
Hmm.
renewed for a second season, and the second season will hit in 2021. So that's
Good,
why I'm
good, yeah,
mentioning it.
because that was
Uh, I have
that
not
was an
watched
interesting
that.
series.
I'm going to add that, and that follows the story of a young woman named Nicole who raises her son Dion after the death of her husband Mark. The normal dramas of raising a son as a single mom are amplified when Dion starts to manifest several magical superhero-like abilities.
Hmm.
I'm definitely adding that, and that's a good cast too. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Oh,
it's a
I've
great
got
cast.
to add that one. Yeah.
And another one also on Netflix. Netflix really taking a lot of these comic book based shows, but not
Yeah.
the usual comic book based shows. Another one that is getting a second season, I believe, is just finished or is in the middle of filming. Is Lock and Key. The first
Yes.
season was
It
very
appears
good.
that
The second one is
they're aiming for an October 2020. The third season began filming on May 3rd, and
mm-hmm,
that it is scheduled to conclude in September 2021.
good.
So we'll have more Lock and Key, and it looks like we'll have more Lock and Key this year. I know there's another Netflix show, but we'll hold off on that for the end. Wynonna Earp,
Yeah,
which is based on a comic book. I watched a couple episodes of the first season, but that was
it's
it. It ran for
it's fun.
4. It recently wrapped up
Hmm.
with the last episodes airing. The last episodes, it seems like they kind of bundled them together on March 5th of this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's another comic book show. The big comic book shows that I don't watch, and nothing against them, I just lost track. The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and The Walking Dead World Beyond. I understand you watched World Beyond.
yeah. World Beyond was all right. It was from last year. It was fine. It was an interesting take on what's happening somewhere else, elsewhere in the United States. And it is going to be more or less an anthology style series. So if it does get a second season, it's going to take place somewhere else, rather than following the kids from Nebraska, from Omaha.
And the reason I mention it
Um,
is because it has been confirmed for a second season, and a
okay, so
second
that is it.
season that will start airing
Fear
this
the
year.
Walking Yeah, Fear the
Yep.
Walking Dead is just about wrapping up, and then Walking Dead will be making another its next season premiere. Walking Dead was delayed; the finales were what
Mhm.
was very much delayed because of COVID. So it actually just finished with its 10th season earlier this year, went straight into Fear the Walking Dead in season 6, and now Walking Dead season 11, which is the last season, will be premiering in the next couple of months, I think. So it's really kind of rapidly happening. Do you want to mention Jupiter's Legacy, which is also on Netflix?
Not yet, because I have 2 more shows to talk about before we get to Jupiter's Legacy and also get to Invincible. So Paper Girls is going to be premiering in 20. I thought they gave an actual date, but it looks like at this point they are just saying September 2021. It looks like they did wrap up filming on April 26th.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Once they finish filming, I feel good about it.
Yep.
If there's still sort of like pre-production or blah, 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 I'm like, this thing may never come out.
Right. And that is going to be on Amazon. One last streaming show to talk about on Netflix, and this is a show I had not heard anything about, but I'm pretty interested in it right now after reading about it, is a Spanish show called The Neighbor or El Vecino, which is a comic based on the comic series El Vecino. And it follows the story of a hapless man who one day inadvertently gains a mysterious power. With the help of his friendly neighbor, he begins to master his newfound abilities to fight evil and at the same time conceal them from the public eye, including his suspicious ex-girlfriend. And this
it looks cute.
Yeah, and this
it always shows up on my queue. So.
And this started second season. Very recently, May 21st. Yeah. So I am adding that to my queue as well. We mentioned Amazon. We mentioned Netflix, kind of bopping back and forth between them. We'll go back to Amazon. Let's talk about Invincible. That's a show that I have not watched beyond the first episode. I did enjoy it. I just haven't had the chance to go beyond that. So why don't you tell us about Invincible, which is animated, and again from Skybound and Robert Kirkman and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it as a wolf, just because it encouraged me to go and get all of the comics, and so I've read about a third of all of the Invincible back library. I still have, another 70 some issues, 70, 80 issues to go. But it's really well done. The animation is very reminiscent of the comic, without being an exact replica of the art style. It does share a little bit of that same sort of like Korean, Japanese American style that not Teen Titans, that Young Justice kind of has, as well. Sort of that new American style that's kind of lifted off of Korean and Japanese styles. It's fun. It's great. It's exciting. It follows quite a bit straight out of the comic series. It does shuffle around some of the timelines a little bit, speeds up certain storylines, and pushes off other storylines to later. But it's fantastic. And of course, John Runyon here is in my mind as well. Omni-Man is the Wolf of the Year for me. Absolutely, he is. He also comes from an entire planet of dudes with mustaches, so it just all kind of works. They're all just like big jack dudes that have mustaches.
That's whatever. A bit of a spoiler for me.
Yeah. Not so much of a spoiler. He's from a planet of people with mustaches.
I haven't read too much of Invincible. I know the basic.
They reveal in the first. Yeah. Oh no, he doesn't.
About his planet.
He only goes over sort of like the history in the first episode a little bit when he's telling his son his origin. But it is very fun series, very bloody, which is something that
I think people, if they were not familiar with the conceit of the series, which I knew about, I've read a little bit, not a lot. I've read maybe about 8 issues, and they've been sporadic, because they've had free issues and 25-cent issues. So, and I do know the basic storyline of Invincible, and particularly the lineage he's from. So I there's someone I knew who was absolutely shocked with the ending, the gore level, and the development in and of itself. So how many episodes is it? Is it fairly short? Is it 4 or 6 or?
It's I think 10 episodes for the first season.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was much shorter than
10.
Okay.
Maybe it is 6. I don't know. It feels like it's a lot more to me. But the comic series, if you do want to read it, is available now. They have all the compendiums out there, and omnibus volumes. So, but yeah, it's fun. It obviously is getting a second season. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's one of their better rated shows on Prime. So,
okay,
it's pretty good.
And then the last show we're going to talk about, which is a show we both have watched, is Jupiter's Legacy, which is on Netflix, based on the Mark Millar and Frank Quietly series. I know this has been a fairly, I don't want to say controversial, but it seems the opinions on the show run the gamut between love it and hate it. So let's talk about it and be interested to hear what you think, and you might be interested to hear what I think.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't love the series. The trailer for me really did it. I really was so excited to see this. I know we've been waiting for it for several years, and I know Mark Millar, when he originally wrote Jupiter's Legacy, was like, this is gonna be made into something. Like, he definitely did write it with an eye for either film or TV. So you can kind of tell from the original comics. But
which to me is a bit strange, because if that was his intention, Frank Quietly isn't the artist I would engage.
No.
But seriously, no. like I would much more be comfortable with like a Brian Hitch or somebody who's far better suited for widescreen TV.
Or Leinil Yu,
widescreen comic.
Which he did. He did work with
Leinil Yu. No, I wouldn't say no.
Super Crooks, it's coming. Super Crooks is coming.
It doesn't mean it's coming, but that's not who I think about with widescreen comics. Steve McNiven. There's certain
splash page style.
Yeah.
So that really trying on that. Yeah, Frank Quietly, but that's the story, I think, with Jupiter's Legacy, is that it is about, just as much as like some of the big action scenes in the comics, it's also about like the very personal, very direct emotional states of some of these characters as they go through what happens in the first series, and then of course how it wraps up in the second series, and then of course Jupiter's Circle, the first and second volume. I think it's had 2 volumes of that too.
Yeah, so both have had 2 volumes, and one's coming up of Legacy. Yeah,
I think with the series, well, same.
Whatever it is, it's coming. Yeah,
whatever it is, I'm gonna get it. But with the series, I think they tried to take elements from the first series of Jupiter's Legacy, and then also work in the history from Jupiter's Circles, or a lot of that backstory. And it's only 8 episodes, but some of those episodes feel like they go on way too long, which is my biggest disappointment. I loved the costuming when they go back, when you have the flashback, cinematically it's different. The way that it's the color scheme, the costumes, the actions and the settings, the makeup, everything.
I mean, you have actors that are playing you have actors that are playing the same characters in the past and the present, and apart from one that I thought didn't pull off as well, they basically pull it off really well.
Yeah. And the effects, where there's not a lot of big action sequences, but the ones that are there
so far,
the ones that are there are very well done. It's very cinematic in that aspect, where you can tell the budget was there.
I thought was interesting, because somebody said one of the first criticisms is, I wish the show had a bigger budget. I'm like, what?
And I'm like, really?
Jesus,
what were you watching?
Yeah.
Maybe they were watching on a shitty TV, or maybe they just haven't been playing with their AV, the TVs.
I don't know. But I have, for somebody who grew up with You Believe a Man Can Fly, everything is icing on the cake from here on out. So, like, I'm the last person to ask about.
You can't see the harness. This is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. There's no strings. There's no strings. So good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they went on too long in some spots, and they didn't spend enough time in others. I think they hit some major story beats. But and I think the characters they got really well. I think they did a really great job, especially with Chloe. I think you really get this character, which is it took several more issues for Millar when writing the comic for me to really feel for her. I thought she was just a bratty little bitch the first time, for most of the original series, but here you're like, wow, she's a brat, but she's got a lot of issues, and there's some really great interactions there. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the criticisms I do agree with, that there are points where it drags and it doesn't. They could have punched it up a lot more to keep the momentum going for all 8 episodes, or maybe even cut it down to 6 episodes, and then.
Yeah, I have to say I really didn't feel it dragged too much. I will say though that I thought it was unbalanced. The show starts off with an incredible fight scene in the first episode, and then you have there's entire episodes where you basically don't see a costume.
Oh yeah.
And so I thought the balance of the show was a little bit off. And I think that is a pitfall that that creators will encounter when you do have a show like this, which bounces back and forth in time. I love the conceit where you had one aspect ratio when it was the present day and another when it was the past. I love that.
I love that.
And it was so seamless that it wasn't until the second episode that I realized that was happening.
Yeah.
So hats off on that. I thought it was a well-cast show. Josh Duhamel, I think, normally it was like generic leading man for me. I thought showed some really interesting depth with his character.
Especially in the past. I think they really,
But that bit did drag on too long.
Yeah.
The quest to get to the fucking island,
that's for me where kind of
that was a bit. But I also think this is the kind of show that had such a hard toe in getting off the ground in terms of what they wanted to set forth, because they cover a lot of ground in those episodes. There's a lot of ground covered that I can imagine the seasons that we have. And I don't think have they actually announced any future seasons yet? I think they were still waiting on streaming numbers.
Not yet,
but with Millar's contract with them that there wouldn't be something.
Well, and he's already got a couple of series that are already coming out, like the Super Crooks animated series, which I don't know why it's animated. I think it'd be a perfect live action heist movie. But anyway, James actually has some comments here. I think Jupiter's Legacy got worse reactions than it deserves. I agree. It's not crap TV. I think we're spoiled, and I think the people who are loudest are apparently the most spoiled about saying that they didn't like it. He enjoyed it. That said, he thought it's bizarre that it's essentially 2 prequels to the comic book series, to 2 comic book series, one of which is already a prequel itself. and I think probably the biggest thing is that, for the amount of time that those 8 episodes take up, you get basically 2 issues. One issue of Legacy and one issue of Circle.
Legacy that we haven't gotten to. A lot.
Yeah, I mean, basically the big sort of like reveal at the end of season 1 is what happens after, like, at the end of issue 1, essentially, of Jupiter's Legacy. And it's kind of like how long? Wait, how much of the source material are actually seeing? Not a lot. Not a lot for 8 hours of the TV or about.
I do want to see more. I definitely want to see more.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is that we have had Watchmen and The Boys and this conceit of what if superheroes were real, what would they be like? And for people that have blinders on about that think they've already been fed every type of variation on that, I just wish they would have opened their minds up a little bit, because I feel that some of the people
hearts.
Come on,
and let them come in
too.
Put Jupiter's Legacy into your heart.
That I do think that I think there were some people that did not give it a fair chance on that basis.
True. Very true. I think they were expecting one thing and got something else. Maybe they were expecting sort of a Netflix version of The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. It is late.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a few comic books
It
and
is.
then we'll wrap up. So, Steve, why don't you tell us about a comic that you're reading that you're digging?
I'll give you a comic. Made in Korea, #1, just came out this week by Image Comics. It's written by Jeremy Holt with George Shaw and Adam Wallet on art and lettering, respectively. It's a very interesting first setup for a book. It starts out in Korea, in Seoul, South Korea. Sort of a number cruncher IT peon is typing away at his keyboard, and somehow he solves something. We're not sure what he solves, but he solves something. He's so excited about it until he tells his buddy, hey, if you're doing that on company time on company equipment, then guess what? The company owns whatever you figured out. The salary man basically is like, oh crap, no, this isn't something my company should own, and quickly takes it, downloads it, and puts it in the product that the company makes, which are children, robot children. And it comes to be very clear that this takes place in a almost dystopian, not too dissimilar to our current timeline, but future, where most people are infertile and cannot have children, and so they have proxy children, and they're basically these robot children that they purchase to take the place of an actual child. And so they're companions, they're replacements, they're part of the family, more or less. And it follows a couple that is thinking about having a child. They've been trying to have a child, and so they decide to go with a proxy. And it turns out it's the proxy that's had the whatever program the programmer came up with embedded in her. And we know, of course, having read comics and sci-fi and everything, that whatever she has is going to make her extremely special, extremely valuable, and probably very valuable for people who are going to come and get her and make things very difficult for her and her new family. So it's an exciting first issue. Not a lot happens, but it sets up so much in a very great way. So definitely check it out. Made in Korea, #1 from Image Comics. Jeremy Holt, George Shaw, and Adam Wallet.
Okay. My book that I am shocked how much I am enjoying it is The Joker, and we are on the second issue here, Joker #2. The writer is James Tinney in the fourth, and I know the artist's last name is March, but I cannot remember. Is it Guillaume March?
Guillaume March?
Yeah, Guillaume March. I got it right.
Yeah.
I have a memory. The book is a bit of a misnomer. It really should be named James Gordon. And what happens in The Joker is the quest to find the Joker, who is in Belize. And Gordon has been engaged by a mysterious benefactor to find out where the Joker is and finally bring him to justice, which may be a more violent means of bringing him to justice than the Batman would ever condone. We have a major development in this book between the relationship of James Gordon and his daughter, Barbara Gordon, the former Batgirl, the current Oracle. That bit in the book was handled so deftly and so well that I am shocked this book is at the top of my stack. I'm shocked at this because it's not a favorite character, it's not a favorite conceit, blah, 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 blah. But Joker #2, can't deny it was the book out of all the DC books that I enjoyed the most. Do you want to do some rapid fire, like real rapid fire about some other books, like really, really rapid?
Well, we've got a couple of rapid fire comments here. So
Okay,
James Figueredo is reading Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters, and it looks so good.
I've heard that, yeah.
And then, of course, John Runyon's also loving The Joker as well. Jim's got a bit of a badass side. I am loving it. So another one, Girls of Dimension 13. This is the second issue. It's coming to us from Aftershock, written by Graham Nolan and art by Brett Blevins. If you like classic 80s, kind of Ditko-ish, kind of fun, whatever.
Okay, great.
And of course, Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters has started, so it's going to be in every Star Wars book for like the rest of the year. So we've got about 40 things to buy. So good luck, everyone.
Okay. My rapid: Tom Taylor in the DC Universe, Batman the Detective #1. Batman is a bit aged in this one. Nightwing by Tom Taylor. Just a great book. Wish I knew about that variant cover. I'm sure Brian will talk about this. Rorschach. #7. We'll talk about it when he's on, but major developments happen in this book. Worst comic book of the year I've read. Even worse than Batman Fortnite #1. Batman versus Ra's al Ghul #6 by Neil Adams. Oh my God. Bad. And then a book that I didn't really enjoy that much, but it did what Batman Fortnite didn't do, which was invite me into a world that I was unfamiliar with. And that is Ruby Justice League #1. So I enjoyed the setup in there. Not a fave, but it did the work that it needed to do. So I felt like I should mention that. All right, we're going to wrap this episode up because the time is ticking. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, the meters went crazy on that one. In the bear community, when you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. I'm going to do this right now because my blue eyes are beautiful right now. Woof. You woof at him. And
that makes good radio.
Look at my eyes though, right now.
Look at my eyes. It makes perfect radio.
My eyes go from hazel green to blue, and they are blue right now, baby. I'm digging that. All right, anyway. Look at Bill. All right, so anyway, in the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. We do something similar here, and this is where we signify something which may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve because you're the only one else here. What is your woof of the week?
Well, again, if you're not too sick of all the TV shows that we've been throwing at you all evening tonight, we also have other TV shows that are non-comic book related that we watch. And one of the things that I've started watching, it will be coming to Peacock. If you have the Peacock app, NBC Peacock app for streaming, it will be showing up on there. Currently, I believe it's running on BBC. It is called We Are Lady Parts. It is a great short British sitcom about a group of Muslim young women in London who have formed a punk band, and they're really fun. It's really interesting representation. It's hilarious. It's irreverent. And the music is actually really good, surprisingly. I'm not sure if the actors themselves are the ones performing the vocals, but definitely it's fun to listen to, and the lyrics are great, and circumstances are very interesting, especially for those of us who don't know too much about the Muslim community, or the South Asian Muslim community in the UK. But it's great. I recommend it highly. We Are Lady Parts. It's a 6-part comedy series coming to Peacock in the US and on BBC in the UK.
Okay, in that vein, my woof of the week was initially going to be the Lindas, but it seems everybody knows about them, so I'm not going to bother. In terms of other TV I'm watching, this wasn't my woof, but I figured I should have them just because these were on hand here. I have been watching 90s DC Comics TV. If you are a friend of mine on Facebook, I watch one show every day and post about it. I basically just post like what the show was. I don't review or anything, but right now I'm in the midst of the 3rd season of The Adventures of Superboy and the only season of the 1990-91 Flash, and the 1st season, 2nd part of it though, of Swamp Thing the series. For all you people who complain about special effects, watch these. You'll never complain again. Right? Plain and simple. Go ahead.
Oh,
why
quick
are you
correction.
interrupting
It is
my
on
woof of the week?
Quick
Why
correction.
Are you doing
it's
that,
Channel
Steve?
4. Channel
okay,
4,
there you
not
go.
BBC.
We really needed that.
Channel 4.
We needed an interruption there.
Yes.
You killed it. You absolutely killed it. Okay. So in regards to my woof of the week, we are having conventions coming back. So I did want to give a woof to the Garden State Comic Fest, which is returning June 4th through the 6th, this time at a new venue, which is the Mills at Jersey Gardens Mall in Elizabeth, New Jersey. That's the mall that you can see right from the Garden State Turnpike over by between, 14 and 13? Yep. And again, shows are back. There are familiar names that will be at this show. We have Dan Parent, we have Billy Tucci, we have Howard Mackey, we have some of the guys from the Warriors. So again, it's nice to see that shows are coming back. In the past, I have run the trivia contest and done some other things for this particular show because of the setup at the new venue, the Jersey Gardens Mall. It's effectively like an appearances and artist alley and comic vendors centric this time around. But I will be there. Pretty sure I'll be there on the 5th, maybe on the 6th. If you want to run into me, and if you are planning, let me know. I'd be happy to run into you. So again, that's the Garden State Comic Fest, June 4th through the 6th. That's next weekend. And you can find out information about that at gardenstateComicFest.com. Okay. Ooh. Not bad. We kept it to 96 minutes so far. That was some rapid fire comics, but that's okay because we talked about a lot of stuff at length. So
a lot of TV.
Yes,
God, we watch way too much TV.
Well, the thing is, though, but I could rather have TV that I missed than they're being sold. I mean, like, look at this. This is what we had back then. Yeah. We had a maximum of 2 hours of comic book TV in 1991.
Well, and if you didn't have cable,
then you didn't have cable, Swamp Thing.
You wouldn't get Swamp Thing.
Superboy was syndicated. The Flash was on CBS.
Yeah.
And this is Marvel had nothing at the time, and we're still a year away from Batman the Animated Series and the X-Men series. So, I'll take an embarrassment of riches with a couple of duds mixed in than 2 hours.
Definitely.
Worth at most during a week. So anyway,
let alone to say 7 seasons worth of of any show comic wise that's been live action. Even the classics like Batman and Wonder Woman only had 2 or 3 seasons. So
yeah, the Adventures of Superman technically had 6 seasons.
Yep.
Batman had 3. Wonder Woman had arguably 3, but they were spread out between within a 5-year period. So the first season actually takes like over 2 years because there were TV movies. Oh, who cares? Anyway, again, I care. But I don't think anybody listening or watching really cares that much for me to go into it. Anyway, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by downloading us through iTunes, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, or catching us on some of the other pod-catching platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you are watching through our Facebook live feed, we thank you. We thank everybody who has contributed the comments during the show. And if you're watching us through YouTube, please like the channel and leave a comment. We would greatly appreciate it. So until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion if you're listening. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.